halfway between Queenstown and Dunedin on State Highway 8. Yeah, I was born in Brisbane, the northern suburbs of Brisbane, which were quite dire in the 60s. It was a lot about you get a job, get married, have children, this tradition of working class Australian families. Don't stand out, don't do anything different. You know, I've never felt I've fitted in my community or my society, which has driven me out to go and search my own way, which has, in the end, proven to be a great thing, really. I always wanted to be a writer from early on. My father's never read a book, but he didn't have to. That's his quote. He's never read one of my books because it's a book. He doesn't do books. So I didn't have any support for that. And I started writing poetry and short stories while I was travelling. I decided to travel the world and went to Europe. And then I met my wife, Marianne, in Ireland.
Kyle was on his big OE, and so we got to know each other, and he came to visit me in Germany 4 weeks later.
I decided to stay after heading off for a couple of days. I got 2 days down the road and thought, no, I do want to go back and see what happens. We fell in love and got married in Germany, lived in Germany for a while.
And then came to New Zealand in 1990.
Marianne was the first one who suggested we stay here.
I always had this romantic idea about living in a little hut by a waterfall in the middle of nowhere.
And here we are, Miller's Flat. We saw this piece of land, had this pile of timber, but we don't have enough money to hire anyone. Would make my woodwork teacher very surprised to know that I'd built a house. Something which is way beyond my capabilities, really. I was terrible at woodwork, can't cut a straight line. It was not as though I had options to do otherwise. The steepest grass roof in New Zealand, potentially the world, we think. It's 38 degrees. And 22 years later, it hasn't moved an inch. Well, it's moved about half an inch, actually. The windows were self-made. I made them just with a circular saw. That was all I had. My semicircle window at the top was quite a challenge. I'm quite proud of it. It's very character building, really. In the winter, it got very, very hard living in the van, our van. No, we spent about a year in here. You'd wake up with frost inside the windows, and the original roof would drip as well. With all condensation of your breath would just start dripping on top of you. So it wasn't ideal. That's all right. We survived. It's a beautiful place. It's a lovely, quiet place, but the quiet is sort of, double-edged thing. Because there is nothing happening, especially in winter. The trees lose their leaves, and the poplars along the creek there cast these long shadows like prison bars, and you start thinking you could want to be out of here. It can be quite grim. Everyone just hunkers down, puts on their fire.
It was actually me who pushed for the living here, and I was the one then who could not handle being here.
Marianne's very social and into doing stuff.
I am a people person compared to Kyle.
I retreat into myself, and it's sort of a writer thing. You need to be able to be by yourself, within yourself, for several months at a time. It
was just too lonely for me. So I left Kyle to it, and I went to the city.
We were apart for about 3 years, more or less. Marianne went to the city and discovered pottery, did a 3-year course in ceramics.
So this is when I touched clay for the first time, and I loved it. Suddenly it's sort of all these opportunities opened up for, ooh, look what I can do with a little lump of dirt.
I wrote novels for 7 years, and nobody wanted them. So, and finally I stumbled into picture books, writing picture books. And I wrote one in one morning suddenly and sent it off, got accepted immediately, and I thought, wow, this is easy. I should have been writing children's books for the last 7 years.
Teapots is my favourite thing to make, I would say. It's sort of an obsession. It was what I wanted to do from the very first moment. I remember asking my teacher, when can I make a teapot? And she was like, oh, please. And just learn to centre the clay first. And I just got obsessed with teapots. In the beginning, I was here and she was there, but then I was there in the winter and she was here in the summer, and we decided to both move here full-time. By that time, I had my job, of course, which, filled the days. On a good day, it is incredibly romantic. We're so free to do whatever we want. You know, that's a good thing about being in the middle of nowhere. You can do whatever you like, and loud music.
Peace and quiet for me is great because that's how I work. I can't work if there's noise. And whereas Marianne she has a totally different set of requirements. When she's making pots, she has some Rammstein blasting away in the studio. You can hear it from sort of a kilometre away.
Rammstein is a German heavy metal band. It's really weird because I make these little pretty things and they are anything but little pretty. I seem to listen a lot to German music. It doesn't matter if it's traditional German drinking songs, which is really embarrassing to admit, but I do like that. I've always made stuff. When I'm making stuff, I can totally live in the moment.
Yeah, being a writer it's great to find your niche somehow. Picture books are my passion. It comes from somewhere deep within, really. Tapping into that wellspring of childhood. A lot of children are reading my stories and it's touching them somehow. Plus I've got all these ideas popping out of my head, and if I don't get rid of them, I shall go mad.
Now and then I get really sick of it and I have this crisis. I want to do sculpture and do non-domestic things and be creative and, you know. And then I always come back to teapots. I just can't, it's got me in its grip somehow. Lately I have tried to introduce the people of New Zealand to having wheels on teapots. Some woman, she said, oh, my husband, he said, it's like having wheels on a tomato. I thought that was very funny and very true in a way, but I still think it's a cool idea and I'm sticking to it. And I've discovered that having furniture on wheels is incredibly handy, and I put everything on wheels and now I can just pull everything around and I love it.
The picture books give me a great sense of fulfillment. My latest one is about, you know, a mule who clips instead of clops. All the herd clops around and he clips, and he goes and searches his own path. And so it's sort of my life story, really. You know, I'm a clipper, and like in my story, when he turns around and goes the other way, the other mules say, you know, you can't go that way because the sun will melt your eyes and you will die. But that's how I've felt all my life, I think, is that, you know, going the opposite way and feeling like if I can tap into children like myself, that's what motivates me, really, that sense of contributing to some children's life. Okay, you don't fit in, but head off in your own direction and you will find the glittering green sea that you can splash in and green pastures to run across.
I think he's very, very clever and funny, and I love him. I was the one who was like, yes, I want to live beside the waterfall, but as much as I do like this countryside, it's a thing for me I struggle with now and then. I need to go to town and dress up and, you know, see and be seen sort of type thing, as silly as that sounds. I would like to take the house. I'd like to have a house on wheels. That would be really handy.
As long as we keep making each other laugh, I think that's the main thing. We'll be these 100-year-old people. We'll be arguing to our grave, I think.
No, we won't.
My name is Andrew. We are from Tana, in Vanuatu, same village and from south. I'm working with Isaac, Tom, and Joseph. Tom is our leader. Yeah, he's our leader. So we came here for harvest and pruning. I like our village. It's more than 60 people in different orchards living here. It's very cold for us in Roxburgh, especially in the morning when it's frost. I mean, I have no job in Vanuatu, so I came here to help my families. I will spend 7 months here and 5 months in Tana. So some of us are working for school fees and all that. Yeah. I like Roxburgh because it's a small town. So we're all friendly, so they're all friendly to us. It reminds me back home, small town to where I came from. So. Roxburgh is one good full place.
Electricity came to me quite early in the piece, batteries and fiddling with things, because I've always been a bit of a fiddler with things and such like, you know. Dad had a big workshop, so it was always in the workshop, learning how things worked. When I had a push bike, it had a headlight on the handlebars, like most push bikes in the old days did have, and had dynamos which were run off the wheel. So as the tyre went round, the dynamo used to power the light. I left school and I finished up getting a job at the power board as an electrician. Sue and I, when we got married, we shifted to Roxburgh. Yeah, we lived at the house above the power station, the Tiviot River Power Station, it was a power board house. We used to look out the window over the substation. Apart from working there, you used to see it all the time. And if you worked on a farm, a lot of people aspire to own a farm. Having worked on a power station, I always thought, geez, it'd be nice to own one of those or build one of those for yourself. So
we're sort of right beside the machines churning away, and he always said, you know, oh God, I'd like to do one of those. The idea's been there right from the word go.
It's not something you wake up one morning and you decide you'll do it.
We didn't have a 5-year plan, we had a 25-year plan. Kids were at university age and they always sort of thought Dad's dreamed to build a powerhouse.
At an early age, they knew we were going to build a power station. They both did degrees in the sort of stuff that we would be needing. Paul took a hydraulics course because it was applicable to power stations and all of these sorts of things. So they did the things that were hopefully going to fit into learning the sort of things we needed to know for it.
I studied physics at University of Canterbury. I guess the ultimate driving goal was always to end up with a power station, so we all had our role and we just filled it. Jeff was the driving force and Paul, my brother, was the engineer who designed around the problems and the solutions for them, and I was the person that implemented them.
Nearly a year and a half ago, we got Talabun generating, and it's been generating pretty much ever since. Yeah, Central Otago, I suspect, in New Zealand, has probably got the largest number of power stations. It's got the big ones. It's got obviously Clyde and Roxburgh, which are about 320 megawatts and 500 megawatts roughly. And then you've got the smaller ones, which are run usually off an old mining claim. After the gold was over, generally a town sprung up where the gold mine was, and they used those water races for local power. One thing followed along from the other. And it's the same for us at Talabun. We've got 22 kilometres of power line, about 20 kilometres is overhead, and there's about 2 kilometres underground. Our power poles are a little bit different. You normally have a wooden cross arm. Most of ours are just bolted basically straight on the side of the pole. They look a bit like a Christmas tree with 3 little insulators on the top. So Jim and Paul did the water study. We didn't pay consultants to do anything. We did all these things ourselves. I'll show you the intake of the water. This is where the water comes out of the creek into our water race. In our case, we pick up the water from the same place out of the Talabun Creek that the gold miners did. We've got a bit bigger intake than they had. It comes out through there and it goes round the side of the hill for 4.8 kilometres, and it goes into a storage pond. A 2-foot pipe drops 840 metres down the hill to the power station where the water runs through the turbine, which generates electricity. Where the power comes out, it's into this transformer, and then it goes onto the overhead power line and away from here up to Ettrick. As well as running a business, you do this in your spare time or after hours or in the weekend. A lot of people feel a passion about doing something. Not everybody just goes to work to eat their lunch and receive their wages. It might have been my idea, but it was all those other people that made it happen. Most of them have gone out of their way a long way because they got caught up in it. It's something you get caught up in doing a job like this, and you need big balls, massive balls.
There's doers and there's not doers. We're all doers.
All the people on the ground floor that got their hands dirty, we remembered them all and kept a book full of them, their names, so we could invite them to the opening. And I think it was about 250 people come to the opening.
Bill English came out and chopped the ribbon and we pushed the go button.
With all these people there waiting, you think, oh my God, is it going to go? Ticked over like a clock. Great. Real proud moment.
It's good that it's running, but yeah, for sure, bittersweet is the word.
Well, they've called it the Paul Wilson generation.
The morning that Paul died, we had a line fault. Paul and I were called out and we noted that the river was dirty through sluicing of the spillway. And Paul decided then he was going to go up and investigate the effect the spill had had on the spillway, take some photographs, I think, and maybe take a water sample. I think his intentions were probably just to get a sample from beside the station, but Paul, being how he was, he sort of followed his nose a bit further up the river, and at some point up the river he's slipped or fallen into the river, and he didn't ever get out. So, that's why it's a bittersweet day. It was something that all of us had worked really, really hard on for all of our future, but it's pretty sad to know that Paul's not going to see or get any benefit out of that work. So definitely bittersweet, yeah.
I've only got one regret, and that's I lost a son on the job, so... Yep, that's the regret I've got. And I can't change that now, so... I've just got to live with it, so... Water flowing past in a creek or a river, to make it into something like electricity that can power people's houses. I look at it and think, to actually make something out of nothing, you've done some good. Most of my working life I've been sort of trying to get here. When you want to do something that seems a bit big, if you don't try, you never know. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. There's a shitload of hassles. It takes all your money and all your energy and all your time, but we'd like to do more. I'd like to do more. I'm getting a bit old and grey, but the thought's still there. So, yeah.
I'm no chef, but yeah, duck à l'orange, fantastic.
Central Otago, yeah, I guess there aren't too many places where you can go and find a bagpiping chemist.
Why I built Television was to show the corporates that you don't need to be big boys to do these sorts of jobs. Just to show them.
Miller's Flat is a wonderful place to be, and I haven't gone totally stir-crazy yet.
Country living, it's really nice, as long as I then can go to Dunedin and go shopping.
Just a perfect place to live.